Hello, bedtime thinkers, and welcome to the Bedtime Discoveries, a quiet corner of the night where science drifts into dreams and the world's wonders unfold gently as you rest. Tonight, we will journey together far to the south, to a land of endless white silence, a continent wrapped in ice, where secrets sleep beneath the frozen surface. We are going to explore the frozen mysteries of Antarctica. Before we begin, I would love to know, where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it? Where you are, leave a little note in the comments so we can all share this moment together across the world. And if you enjoy this gentle journey, please like this video and subscribe to the Bedtime Discoveries. Your support helps this quiet community grow and keeps these calming explorations alive. Close your eyes and picture the world slowly spinning, oceans glistening under sunlight, continents stretching like ancient puzzle pieces, and then let your imagination drift far south to the very edge of the planet, where silence has a kingdom, and that kingdom is white. This is Antarctica, a continent larger than Europe, twice the size of Australia, and cloaked almost entirely in ice. It is a place where 90% of Earth's ice rests, and within it, 2/3 of the planet's fresh water, all locked away in frozen stillness. The first impression for anyone who sets foot here is of endlessness. The horizon blurs into the sky, as if the ground and the heavens have agreed to merge in pale light. There are no forests, no villages, no human sound, only the sighing of the wind and the crunch of snow beneath heavy boots. It is said that standing in Antarctica, one feels both small and timeless. Small because the land stretches so far in every direction that you cannot imagine its limits. Timeless because the ice beneath your feet has lain there for centuries and will remain for centuries more, shifting slowly, imperceptibly, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. To walk across Antarctica would take months. Its width is over 5,000 kilometers, longer than the Sahara Desert, longer even than crossing an ocean by ship. But instead of sand and heat, this desert holds only ice and the coldest air known to humankind. In 1983, at Vostok Station, scientists recorded the lowest temperature ever measured on Earth, minus 89.2 degrees Celsius. At such a temperature, breath crystallizes, metal grows brittle, and even time feels as though it is frozen. Yet beneath the silence and this immensity lies more than emptiness. Antarctica is not just a land of snow, but a place of hidden mountains, buried lakes, and secrets sealed away from the world. It is a continent that belongs to Earth, yet feels as though it belongs to the stars. When explorers first reached these shores, they wrote a beauty so harsh, it was almost painful. Imagine men in wool and fur, dragging sleds through biting winds, faces raw with cold, eyes watering under the sting of ice. And yet, when they paused, they looked out upon a land so vast, so pure, that their hearts were struck silent. They saw glaciers stretching like frozen rivers, creeping slowly toward the sea. They saw mountains rising from the ice, their black stones scarred with frost. They saw skies so wide, so pale, that it seemed one could step into them and vanish forever. Antarctica is not only cold, but dry, though snow covers its body. This is the driest desert in the world. The little snow that falls rarely melts. Instead, it compresses, layer upon layer, year after year, into thick sheets of ice, some more than 4 kilometers deep. To stand here is to feel history beneath your feet. Every step rests upon layers of frozen time, snow from centuries ago, compressed into silence. A single block of Antarctic ice can hold memories of ancient skies, dust from deserts half a world away, and whispers of climates long forgotten. And then there's the sound, or rather, the absence of it. Antarctica's silence is different from the silence of a forest or the silence of a night sky. It is a silence that feels alive, as though the land itself is listening back to you. The wind rises, falls, and the great continent waits, calm, endless, patient. Yet, despite its barrenness, life does touch Antarctica. At its edges, penguins gather in colonies, their black and white figures, scattered like stones across the ice. Seals lounge on floes, their heavy bodies warmed by thick blubber. Seabirds will in the air, their cries carried across the stillness. But beyond the coast, deeper inland, life fades away. No trees, no flowers, no buzzing insects, only the kingdom of ice, stretching into eternity. The continent, in its frozen immensity, teaches a quiet lesson. It reminds us that nature, in its truest form, is not always gentle or green. Sometimes it is harsh, unyielding, and yet breathtaking. Antarctica is Earth's ultimate reminder of strength and fragility combined. To think of Antarctica is to think of time itself. The glaciers here do not rush. They do not hurry. They creep at the pace of centuries. A single journey of ice from the heart of the continent to the sea may take longer than the entire span of recorded human history. This is why scientists call Antarctica a time machine, not because it moves us forward or back, but because it holds the past so carefully, so patiently, waiting for us to listen. And yet, for all its silence, this is not a dead land. It breathes in its own way. The winds swirl in endless patterns, rising from the plateau, sweeping toward the oceans. These winds help shape weather systems, far beyond the southern seas, reaching into climates that touch us all. Antarctica's sheer size makes it more than a continent. It is a regulator of the planet itself, a frozen heart that beats slowly, but powerfully. And still, for those who look upon it, there's a sense of something deeper, a sense that this continent, in its immensity, is not just a place, but a mirror reflecting the patience of nature and the smallness of human lives. Standing upon its ice, the first explorers wrote of awe, modern scientists write of reverence, and dreamers, like us tonight, write of stillness. The vast white continent, Antarctica, is not only the southern edge of the earth, it is a reminder that our planet holds places beyond imagination, beyond comfort, and yet filled with beauty that can quiet even the loudest of hearts. Imagine for a moment that the earth has kept a diary, not on paper, not in ink, but in ice. Antarctica's glaciers are more than frozen water. They are pages, stacked one upon another, recording every snowfall, every storm, every whisper of the atmosphere. For millions of years, when snow falls in Antarctica, it rarely melts. The air is too cold, the sun too weak. Instead, each snowfall remains, pressing gently upon the layers below. Year after year, century after century, the weight of new snow compresses the older flakes, turning them into firn and then into solid ice. And so the layers build like chapters of a story, written slowly but with infinite patience. Scientists call these layers ice cores. Imagine a cylinder of ice, drilled from deep beneath the surface. To the eye, it may look like a simple column of frozen water, but to those who study it, it is a treasure chest. Inside each thin slice of ice lies dust from deserts far away, ash from ancient volcanic eruptions, salt carried by winds from the sea, and tiny bubbles of air that hold the breath of past skies. Some of these cores stretch back hundreds of thousands of years. The oldest known ice found in Antarctica is estimated to be over 2.7 million years old. This means that deep beneath the continent, the atmosphere of Earth's distant past is still preserved, waiting quietly in silence. Think of that for a moment. The air we breathe today is only a snapshot, a moment in the long rhythm of climate. But the bubbles in Antarctic ice tell us how the world once was, when humans had not yet walked the earth, when mammoths roamed northern lands, when continents drifted silently through time. And these icy pages can be read with astonishing detail. By studying the trapped air, scientists can measure carbon dioxide, methane, and even tiny traces of other gases. From this, they learn how the climate has shifted, how warm ages rose, and how ice ages fell. It is as though Antarctica itself has kept a memory of Earth's breath and whispers it to those who are patient enough to listen. Picture an ancient storm. Thousands of years ago, winds swept across the deserts of Africa, lifting fine grains of dust into the sky. Those grains traveled on invisible currents, thousands of kilometers across the sea, until at last they fell upon Antarctica, settling gently on snow. Today, that same dust grain rests, buried deep within the ice sheet, a silent witness to a world long gone. Now imagine a volcanic eruption, its plume darkening the skies of the southern hemisphere. Ash drifts outward, carried by winds, eventually reaching the frozen plains. It, too, becomes buried, layer upon layer, waiting in silence. Centuries later, a scientist drills deep into the ice and finds that thin black line of ash. With it, they can tell the exact year of the eruption and compare it with records elsewhere in the world. The ice does not forget. Some layers hold sea salt, frozen traces of ocean spray, blown inward by storms. Others contain pollen, tiny fragments from distant lands, carried impossibly far, and caught forever in frozen time. Together, these fragments weave a tapestry of Earth's ancient climate. And then there are the air bubbles, tiny spheres of atmosphere, trapped as snow compressed into ice. Each bubble is a perfect time capsule, a sample of the sky, as it was on that day, that season, that year. When scientists melt these bubbles, they release the breath of the past. They can tell how much carbon dioxide was in the air, how much methane, how much oxygen. With these clues, they reconstruct the story of climate. The story is not simple. It tells of cycles, of warm ages followed by icy winters of the world. It tells of times when Earth was warmer and seas rose higher. It tells of times when ice advanced, covering continents far to the north and within it, we see the delicate balance of Earth's systems, a balance that continues to shape our lives today. The more scientists read, the more they realize that Antarctica is not just a place of silence. It is a place of memory, a frozen library that has kept every page safe, waiting for us to open it and learn. The beauty of these icy records is not only in what they tell us of the past, but in how they guide us toward the future. By studying the gases in ice cores, scientists discovered the deep connection between carbon dioxide and temperature. When carbon dioxide levels rose, the Earth warmed. When they fell, the Earth cooled. This pattern repeated over hundreds of thousands of years. The ice, in its silent patience, revealed the rhythm of climate, a rhythm invisible to human lifetimes. And then something remarkable happened. When scientists compared ancient records with today's atmosphere, they saw that carbon dioxide levels were higher than at any time. In the past 800,000 years, the ice had spoken, and it warned us that the balance was changing faster than ever before. This knowledge is a gift. Without the ice, we might never have known how unusual our moment is, how quickly the climate has shifted. But thanks to these frozen archives, we can understand, we can prepare, and perhaps we can act with wisdom. There is also wonder in knowing that every snowflake falling tonight on Antarctica may one day become part of the story. Perhaps 10,000 years from now, a scientist will drill into the ice and find the air of our time, the dust of our storms, the traces of our oceans, and they will know us as we now know those who came before. In this way, the ice is both memory and message. It holds the silence of the past and whispers of the future. It teaches us that the earth is vast, that time is patient, and that every breath we take becomes part of the planet's endless story. So when we think of Antarctica and its frozen expanses, let us not think only of cold and emptiness. Let us remember its hidden layers, its patient library of snow, its careful record of skies long gone. For in those layers lies the wisdom of ages, a reminder that Earth remembers, even when we forget. When we look at Antarctica from above, all we see is white, ice, stretching outward in every direction, smooth and endless. It seems impossible to imagine that beneath this frozen surface, water still flows, and yet, deep under the thick sheets of ice, there are rivers, dark, hidden rivers, that have been running quietly for millions of years. The idea of rivers beneath Antarctica was once thought impossible. How could liquid water exist beneath ice that is kilometers thick and in temperatures colder than anywhere else on Earth? But the answer lies in pressure and in warmth that rises from deep within the Earth itself. As snow falls year after year and compresses into thick ice, its weight presses down. At the bottom, the pressure is so great that the ice begins to melt slightly, forming thin layers of water. This water does not freeze again because it is insulated by the ice above and warmed by gentle heat from Earth's crust below. And so, over time, this hidden water begins to move, finding pathways, carving channels, flowing quietly, just as rivers do above ground. Scientists now believe there may be thousands of kilometers of hidden waterways beneath Antarctica. They flow unseen, connecting lakes to lakes and glaciers to oceans, Some are small streams, trickling in silence. Others are vast, capable of carrying water for hundreds of kilometers. One of the most astonishing discoveries was made by satellites. Scientists noticed that certain parts of the ice sheet were rising and falling, as though the land itself were breathing. What could cause such a thing? The answer: water moving beneath the ice. As rivers filled hidden lakes, the surface above swelled upward, and when those lakes drained, the surface sank again. It was as though the ice itself was alive, responding to the hidden pulse below. Imagine, deep under 2 kilometers of ice, a river flows, silent and eternal. It never sees the sun, never feels the wind, yet it moves with patience, carrying water from the heart of the continent toward the waiting sea. Where rivers flow, lakes must also gather. And Antarctica holds some of the strangest and most secret lakes on Earth. The most famous of these is Lake Vostok. It lies beneath nearly 4 kilometers of ice and is as large as Lake Ontario in North America. For millions of years, it has remained sealed off from the world above, untouched, undisturbed, and completely dark. Scientists believe that Lake Vostok has been isolated for at least 15 million years. Imagine that, a body of water larger than some countries that has not seen the open sky since long before humans existed. What secrets might it hold? When Russian scientists first drilled into Lake Vostok, they did so with great care. There was fear of contaminating the pristine water, fear of disturbing something that had been pure for millions of years. When they finally broke through, they found strange microbes, organisms adapted to total darkness, to high pressure, and to a chemistry unlike anything on the surface. It was proof that even here, life can endure. And Lake Vostok is not alone. Over 400 subglacial lakes have been discovered beneath Antarctica. Some are small and shallow. Others are deep and vast. Together, they form a hidden landscape of water, a second world beneath the ice. What makes these lakes so remarkable is that many are connected by rivers. Water flows in, fills them, and then drains away again. It is a secret circulation, a hidden hydrology that no human eyes have ever seen. And this raises a profound question. If life can survive in these dark, cold, isolated waters, might similar life survive in oceans beneath the ice of other worlds? On Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's moon Enceladus, oceans lie beneath frozen shells. Could Antarctica's hidden lakes be a mirror of those distant worlds? To study them is to not only understand Earth, but also to glimpse the possibilities of life beyond our planet. The hidden rivers and lakes of Antarctica are not only strange, they are vital. They help control the way ice moves, the way glaciers slide, and even the way seas rise. Glaciers, though they seem frozen and still, are always moving. They creep slowly toward the coast, pulled by their own immense weight. But how fast they move depends on the water beneath them. A dry glacier clings tightly to rock, dragging slowly. But a glacier that rests on liquid water can slide quickly, rushing toward the sea. This is why scientists watch the hidden rivers so carefully. They may hold the key to understanding how quickly ice might melt and how fast our oceans might rise. But the mystery goes deeper still. Some of these lakes, may hold ecosystems completely unknown to science. Imagine organisms that have lived for millions of years, without sunlight, feeding on minerals, or on chemical energy released from the earth below. Such life would be unlike anything we are familiar with. It would expand our understanding of what it means to be alive. In 2019, scientists drilled into Lake Mercer, a subglacial lake buried under a kilometer of ice. What they found was astonishing. Not only microbes, but also remains of dead animals, tiny crustaceans, worms, and even traces of fish DNA. Somehow, life had touched even this hidden place, perhaps carried in by rivers, perhaps surviving longer than anyone expected. And so, the rivers and lakes beneath Antarctica remind us of something profound, that even in darkness, life finds a way, that even under kilometers of ice, the earth keeps moving, keeps breathing, keeps whispering its secrets. When we think of Antarctica, we picture silence. But beneath that silence, water flows. It flows in patience, in secrecy, in mystery, and as it moves, it shapes the destiny of ice, the fate of seas, and perhaps the possibilities of life beyond Earth. When we imagine Antarctica, we think of emptiness, a place of silence, where snow falls endlessly and winds sweep across barren plains. It seems too cold, too harsh, too empty for life to survive. And yet, beneath the thick layers of ice, life quietly endures. It does not roar or bloom as it does in warmer lands. Instead, it whispers in hidden forms, in secret ways, adapted to darkness, to pressure, and to cold that would freeze almost anything else. Scientists once believed that the deep regions beneath the Antarctic ice sheet were lifeless, but slowly, piece by piece, evidence began to suggest otherwise. In subglacial lakes, in pockets of brine, in sediments trapped for millions of years, tiny organisms, microbes, bacteria, and even simple animals have been found. Imagine a world sealed away for over 1 million years. No sunlight, no seasons, no warmth from above. And yet, in that world, cells divide, microbes breathe, and chemical reactions provide energy just enough for life to continue. The survival of these organisms is an extraordinary story of adaptation. Some use the energy stored in minerals. Some feed on carbon compounds, trapped in ancient sediments. Others survive on nothing more than the slow trickle of nutrients released by the melting ice. It is a reminder that life is not fragile. It is persistent. It finds a way, even where we expect only silence. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of all, that beneath Antarctica's frozen heart, there are hidden ecosystems thriving in conditions once thought impossible. The story of life below Antarctica is not limited to microbes. In recent years, scientists drilling through thick ice shelves have made startling discoveries. In 2021, a team drilled nearly a kilometer through the Filchneron ice shelf. When their camera reached the bottom, they expected to see nothing but rock, but instead, they found living creatures, sponges anchored to the rock, strange filter feeders, gathering food in total darkness, creatures that had no sunlight, no plants, no obvious source of energy. And yet, there they were. This discovery shocked scientists. How could animals survive in a place without sunlight, without photosynthesis, without the food webs we know so well? The answer is still a mystery. Perhaps nutrients drifted in from distant open waters. Perhaps chemical reactions within the rock fed tiny bacteria, which in turn supported larger life. Perhaps these creatures are adapted in ways we cannot yet imagine. Even more astonishing, when sediment samples were taken from subglacial lakes, traces of multicellular organisms were found: crustaceans, tiny worms, even fragments of DNA belonging to fish. These clues suggest that Antarctica's hidden world is far more alive than anyone had believed. To think that under kilometers of ice, in total darkness, there may be entire ecosystems, communities of organisms, living quietly, out of sight, for millions of years. It is almost like a dream, a hidden kingdom, silent and patient, revealed only when we dare to look deeper. The life hidden beneath Antarctica is not only strange and fascinating, it also carries lessons for science, for the Earth, and for our search beyond this planet. First, it reminds us of Earth's resilience. Life does not need sunlight. It does not need warmth. It only needs a spark, a source of energy, a place to hold on. And with those, life will endure. This means that the boundaries of the possible are far wider than we once thought. Second, it gives us a glimpse of other worlds. If microbes, sponges, and perhaps even tiny animals can live beneath Antarctica's ice, then maybe life could also exist beneath the icy shells of Europa or Enceladus. There, too, dark oceans are sealed away, untouched by sunlight. There, too, life might whisper in the shadows. Third, it teaches us humility. For centuries, we looked at Antarctica and saw emptiness, but beneath the surface, life was always there, quietly enduring. It waited patiently until we developed the tools to finally notice it. Perhaps this is the greatest secret of Antarctica, that even in the harshest places, there is wonder, that life is never truly absent, that beneath stillness, there is always movement, and beneath silence, there is always a heartbeat. As we study these hidden organisms, we are reminded that Earth itself is full of mysteries that we do not yet know, the full story of our own planet, and that sometimes the most beautiful discoveries are found not in distant galaxies, but deep beneath our own feet. When most of us picture Antarctica, we imagine flat, endless ice stretching to the horizon, unbroken, silent, and white. But deep beneath this ice, there are mountains, not just small ridges, but entire ranges, as tall and as wide as the Alps in Europe. They are called the Gamburtsev Mountains, and they lie buried beneath nearly 3 kilometers of ice. For millions of years, no human eye had ever seen them. They were unknown, their peaks hidden, their valleys sealed away. It was only in the mid-20th century, during the Cold War, that they were discovered by chance. In 1958, Soviet scientists flew radar equipment over East Antarctica. The signals bounced back in a way that revealed something extraordinary. Beneath the smooth ice sheet, there were sharp peaks, deep valleys, and jagged ridges. It was as though an entire mountain range had been frozen in place, a ghostly twin of the world above. The Gamburtsev Mountains are about 1,200 kilometers long, roughly the distance from Paris to Rome. Their tallest peaks rise over 3,000 meters, though none of them has ever been seen in daylight. For decades, scientists wonder how they formed. Were they ancient remnants, billions of years old, or had they risen more recently, before being entombed in ice? Slowly, with seismic studies, radar mapping, and ice drilling, clues began to emerge. The mountains appeared to be ancient, as old as 1 billion years, but their current form, their sharpness and height, suggests they were rejuvenated by tectonic activity about 250 million years ago. Then, when Antarctica froze over, the ice preserved them like a time capsule, while other mountains eroded, worn down by wind and rain. The Gambertseves remained untouched, sealed in their icy tomb. They are mountains of silence, hidden from view, but as real and vast as the Himalayas. The existence of buried mountains raises many questions. How can peaks so tall remain so sharp after so many millions of years? How did glaciers carve the valleys before the ice sheet grew so thick? And what secrets might still be hidden in those valleys today? To answer these questions, an international team of scientists launched a project called AGAP, the Antarctica's Gambertsev Province Survey. Using aircraft equipped with radar and sensors, they mapped the hidden range in detail. What they found was astonishing. The Gambertsevs are shaped very much like the Alps. They have sharp ridges, deep valleys, and wide basins. Some valleys appear to once have held rivers and lakes before the ice swallowed them. In fact, it is possible that even today, lakes of liquid water remain trapped in the basins, just as Lake Vostok does nearby. The combination of rock and ice creates something extraordinary. The mountains act as anchors, holding the East Antarctic ice sheet in place. Without them, the ice might have spread differently, flowing in new directions, reshaping the coastline of the continent. In this way, the buried mountains are quietly controlling the stability of the ice sheet above. And then there's the mystery of age. Most mountain ranges erode over tens of millions of years. The Alps, for example, are already worn by glaciers and rivers. But the Gambertsevs, though a billion years old at their roots, still look young, sharp, and rugged. It is as if the ice itself is a protective shield, freezing them in time, locking them in place. Scientists often call them a ghost range, a landscape that exists yet cannot be seen, a reminder that beneath Antarctica's white silence, there are worlds as dramatic as any we know. The mountains beneath the ice are not just a geological curiosity. They also shape the story of Antarctica's past, present, and future. First, they reveal the ancient history of the continent. The Gambertsev Mountains likely formed when continents collided long before Antarctica reached the South Pole. They may have once been part of supercontinents, like Rodinia or Gondwana, before breaking apart and drifting into isolation. Their very existence is a fossil of Earth's deep history. Second, they help us understand how ice sheets grow. The valleys of the Gambertsevs may have been the birthplace of the East Antarctic ice sheet itself. Snow gathered in the basins, compacted into ice, and slowly spread outward, From there, the ice expanded, covering the continent in its present frozen blanket. Third, they remind us of what lies unseen. For every mountain we climb, there may be another, buried deep below. For every landscape we know, there may be one hidden, waiting quietly beneath the surface. One day, perhaps far in the future, when the ice is melted, the Gambrinus Mountains will rise again. Their peaks will break into daylight. Their valleys will hold rivers once more, and they will stand revealed as one of the greatest ranges on earth. But for now, they remain silent, cold, buried, untouched. As we drift towards sleep, it is comforting to think of these mountains. They are not gone. They are only hidden, and in their quiet endurance, they remind us of something timeless, that even in silence, there is strength, that even in darkness, there is beauty, and that the earth, beneath its frozen mask, is always full of secrets, waiting to be discovered. When sunlight falls upon Antarctica, something extraordinary happens. Instead of being absorbed, most of that light bounces back into space. The reason is the ice, the white reflective surface, acts like a giant mirror, casting sunlight away and keeping Earth cool. This ability to reflect sunlight is called albedo. The higher the albedo, the more light is reflected, and Antarctica, covered in endless snow and ice, has one of the highest albedos on Earth. Without this mirror, our planet would be warmer, seas would rise, weather would shift, and climates would change. In a very real sense, Antarctica is a thermostat, helping regulate Earth's temperature. But this mirror is delicate. When ice melts, dark ocean water is exposed. Unlike ice, the ocean absorbs sunlight. It soaks up warmth and grows hotter. This, in turn, melts more ice and reveals more water. A cycle begins, one that can speed up warming across the globe. And so, the presence of Antarctica's ice is not just a detail, it is a safeguard. It is one of the planet's most important shields, keeping balance, keeping coolness, keeping stability. When we close our eyes and imagine that vast white mirror shining under the sun, we are really picturing a guardian of Earth's climate, a guardian made of snow, ice, and silence. Antarctica's role in climate is not limited to sunlight. It also shapes the oceans, their currents, and their rhythms. At the edges of the continent, seawater freezes each winter. As it does, salt is pushed out, leaving the new ice fresher, and the surrounding water saltier. This salty water becomes very dense and sinks downward. As it sinks, it pushes other water outward, setting vast ocean currents in motion. This process is called thermohaline circulation. It is sometimes known as the ocean's conveyor belt, and Antarctica is one of the engines that drives it. The water that sinks near Antarctica travels for thousands of kilometers, flowing into other oceans, carrying oxygen, carrying nutrients, carrying memory. It mixes the seas. It regulates temperature. It connects the world. Without Antarctica's cold heart, this system would falter. The oceans would grow stagnant. Heat would pool in some places, while others would starve of nutrients. The balance of life in the seas, from the smallest plankton to the largest whales, depends on this frozen heartbeat. And so, Antarctica is not just ice. It is a pulse, a rhythm, a breath that flows through the oceans of Earth. When we listen to the sound of waves or feel the cool wind from the sea, we are, in a quiet way, feeling the reach of Antarctica. Its frozen silence touches every shore. The role of Antarctica in Earth's climate is powerful, but also fragile. The ice sheet holds about 70% of the world's fresh water. If it were all to melt, sea levels would rise by more than 50 meters. Entire coastlines would be redrawn. Cities would vanish beneath the waves. For now, the ice remains, but at the edges, it is thinning. Warmer air and warmer seas are slowly eating away. At the Great White Shield, glaciers are retreating. Ice shells are breaking, and the mirror that once reflected sunlight is shrinking. Each small change in Antarctica echoes across the globe. Storms shift, winds alter their course, rains fall in new patterns. It is a reminder that this frozen continent, though far away, is tied to all of us. Yet even as we watch the changes, there is wonder, for Antarctica is also a record keeper. Within its ice, layer upon layer, lies a history of climate, stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. By studying the bubbles of ancient air, we learn how Earth once breathed, how its climate rose and fell, and what may yet come. And so, Antarctica is both present and past. It is both a mirror of today and a memory of yesterday. It teaches us balance. It shows us fragility, and it whispers a truth we should not forget. That Earth is one system, interwoven, delicate, alive. As we drift toward sleep, it is calming to know that this frozen land is watching over us, silent, reflective, enduring. The cold heart of the planet, beating softly beneath the stars. When snow falls in Antarctica, it does more than cover the ground. Each flake, light and delicate, carries with it a trace of the atmosphere. Over time, as more snow piles above, the weight presses downward. The snow is compacted into ice, and tiny bubbles of air are sealed inside. These bubbles are time capsules. They are not just air. They are whispers of the past. Each one holds a record of what Earth's atmosphere was like when that snow first fell. Scientists drilled deep cores of ice, stretching back thousands, even hundreds of thousands of years. Each layer tells a story. A warm period, a cold period, the rise and fall of carbon dioxide, the breath of Earth itself. Some ice cores reach back over 800,000 years. Within them, we can see cycles, the ebb and flow of ice ages, the gentle warming and cooling like a heartbeat, spanning deep time. It is humbling to hold in your hand a piece of ice that contains the very air breathed by animals long vanished. Mammoths, giant ground sloths, saber-toothed cats. Their world is still preserved in frozen bubbles, waiting quietly beneath Antarctica's surface. These bubbles remind us that the past is never truly gone. It lingers, sealed in silence, until we learn to listen. When scientists melt an ice core and release its trapped air, they are listening to voices from long ago. The concentration of gases, the ratios of oxygen, the traces of carbon, all speak of climates past. They tell us of warm interglacial periods when forests spread and seas rose. They tell us of deep ice ages when glaciers advanced and animals migrated, they reveal cycles, roughly every 100,000 years, of cold and warmth, driven by the tilt of Earth's axis, the pull of the moon, and the shape of our orbit around the sun. But they also whisper warnings. In recent centuries, the levels of carbon dioxide in the air have risen faster than at any time in the past 800,000 years. In ice cores, we see gentle curves of rise and fall, like waves. But in modern times, the curve is a steep cliff, shooting upward and away. Nature has never ridden before. The ancient air shows us that Earth has always changed, but it also shows us that today's changes are faster, sharper, and deeper, and yet there's beauty in this record. To breathe in air from a bubble 500,000 years old is to touch the memory of the planet. It is to inhale the breath of a world before ours, to listen to the faintest whisper and realize it is still clear, still telling its story. After all this time, these messages across millennia remind us of connection, that the air we breathe today will one day become tomorrow's ice, and that our own lives, our own breath, will linger as whispers too, sealed in the frozen heart of the earth. The whispers of ancient air are more than records. They are rhythms. They show us that Earth itself has a breath. Inhale as ice grows and carbon is drawn into oceans. Exhale as ice retreats and carbon rises once more. For millions of years, this breath has been steady, slow, and balanced, but today the breath is strained. The exhale grows stronger, and the inhale grows weaker. It is as if the planet is breathing too fast, too shallow, out of rhythm. By listening to the whispers of ancient air, we learn how delicate this rhythm is. We see that climate is not fixed, but responsive, that small changes in sunlight, in gases, in currents can tip the balance. And yet, there's comfort here too, for within these ice cores, we see resilience. Earth has endured great swings of climate. It has frozen, and it has warmed. It has held life through storms, through droughts, through upheaval, and always life has continued. The whispers of ancient air are therefore not only warnings, they are reassurances. They tell us that though the planet changes, though its breath grows shallow or deep, it endures. And so do we, as we drift toward rest. It is calming to imagine those tiny bubbles trapped in blue ice, glowing faintly in the darkness, each one a message, a memory, a sigh of the earth. They remind us to breathe slowly, to breathe gently, to match our rhythm to that of the planet, and in that shared breath, to find peace at the edge of Antarctica, where the frozen white world meets the restless sea. Something extraordinary is always happening. The ice, heavy and ancient, flows outward like a slow river, creeping ever so gently toward the ocean. There, it meets the salt water and begins to break apart. Some of this ice forms floating shelves, vast platforms stretching for hundreds of miles. They look solid, like endless plains of white, but beneath them lies the dark, moving ocean. Warm currents slip quietly under the shelves, licking at their undersides, slowly melting them from below. Other times, the edges fracture into towering icebergs. These giants, some the size of cities, drift away into the southern ocean, turning and rolling before eventually melting and returning to the sea. For thousands of years, this balance held steady. Ice flowed outward, icebergs drifted away, and the shelves slowly melted. But today, the balance is shifting. Warmer air, warmer water. Both are nibbling at Antarctica's frozen edges. The shelves thin, the icebergs break faster, and the rhythm of loss outpaces the rhythm of renewal. It is as if Antarctica, so silent and strong, is beginning to loosen its grip, letting pieces of itself slip away into the waiting ocean. When Antarctica loses ice, the oceans remember. Every drop that melts, every iceberg that fades away, adds to the vast waters of the world. And slowly, quietly, the seas begin to rise. For those living far away, it may seem distant, a far-off continent with no people, no cities, but water is a traveler. It does not stay in one place. The melt from Antarctica spreads across every coastline, touching every shore. Already, sea levels are higher today than they were a century ago. In some places, the rise is only a few inches. But for low-lying islands, those inches mean the difference between dry land and flooded homes. For coastal cities, it means tides creeping further inland, storms pushing higher waves, and salt water seeping into fresh rivers. The ancient ice, once locked away for millennia, now becomes part of the restless ocean. It moves through harbors, laps against seawalls, and gently reminds humanity that distance is an illusion. What happens at the edge of Antarctica reaches across the planet. Yet, even in this story of change, there is something strangely soothing. To imagine the journey of a snowflake falling thousands of years ago, pressed into ice, sealed away in silence, and now, at last, returning to the sea. It is the slow cycle of water, the endless movement, always transforming, always finding its way home. The melting edges of Antarctica are not just a story of loss. They're also a story of balance. The Earth, delicate and complex, has always shifted between ice and water, between frozen stillness and flowing change. Scientists watch the glaciers closely. They measure how fast the shelves thin, how quickly the bergs break away, how much water enters the sea. These measurements are like a pulse check, a way of listening to the health of the planet. The story they tell is not one of sudden collapse, but of gradual transformation. Year by year, the edges retreat, the seas expand. The maps redraw themselves ever so slightly. For us, living in this time, it feels swift, but for the ice, measured in centuries, this too is just another chapter. The question, softly lingering, is what role we will play. Will we ease the warming and help the shells endure longer? Or will we continue to heat the air and water, letting the balance tip further? And yet, in the quiet of night, when the world grows still, there is comfort in remembering that the earth is resilient, that the cycles of ice and water are vast beyond measure, that even as seas rise, life adapts, shores shift, and the planet continues its slow dance. As you rest, picture the frozen edge of Antarctica, the white cliffs standing above the dark sea, a gentle crack, an iceberg drifting away, and beneath it all, the ocean's eternal heartbeat, steady, soothing, carrying the whispers of the ice into every corner of the world, long before satellites, long before airplanes. Antarctica was only an idea. Ancient philosophers imagined that a vast land must exist in the far south to balance the continents of the north. They called it Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land. For centuries, this place was only a whisper on maps. Sailors spoke of icy seas, of strange birds with no fear of humans, of endless days of light and endless nights of darkness. But the true land remained hidden, guarded by storms and seas filled with ice. In the late 18th century, Captain James Cook sailed south. He braved the frozen waters, circling close, but he never touched the continent itself. Instead, he saw great fields of ice, stretching as far as the eye could see. He declared that no man could ever venture further, that the cold and the ice were too fierce to overcome. Yet the idea of Antarctica did not fade. It lingered, a mystery, a blank space at the bottom of the map. And for explorers, a blank space is an invitation. The 19th century brought the first landings. Seal hunters and whalers ventured south, drawn by profit, but they also glimpsed the vast white coastlines. They saw mountains rising through the ice and glaciers tumbling into the sea. They realized this was no mere island, but a continent, the last great continent, to be revealed to humankind. These first glimpses of Antarctica were the beginning of a story not a conquest, but a discovery of men standing in awe before a land so silent, so immense, that even the bravest spoke of its beauty in hushed tones. As the 20th century dawned, Antarctica became the stage for one of the greatest chapters of human adventure. It was called the heroic age of exploration. Men like Roald Amundsen, Robert Falcon Scott, and Ernest Shackleton set sail with wooden ships, sled dogs, and woolen clothing, determined to reach the heart of the unknown. In 1911, Amundsen and his team were the first to stand. At the South Pole, they planted their flag, tired but triumphant, knowing they had achieved what had seemed impossible. Scott, arriving weeks later, found only Amundsen's marker. His journey back was tragic, a reminder of the cost of such perilous quests. Yet even in tragedy, Scott's words endure, testament to human courage, to the spirit of discovery. Shackleton's expeditions were stories of endurance. His ship, the Endurance, was trapped by sea ice and eventually crushed. Yet Shackleton led his men across the frozen sea, through storms and hunger, and not a single life was lost. His name became a symbol of leadership, of hope in the face of despair. These explorers were not searching for riches. They were not conquering new lands. They were simply reaching for the unknown, and in their journals, their photographs, their weary smiles, we glimpse the human soul, restless, curious, drawn always to the horizon. Antarctica humbled them, yet it also revealed their greatest strength, the ability to endure, to adapt, to keep moving forward, even in the coldest silence. Today, Antarctica is no longer reached by wooden ships and sled dogs. Scientists arrive in aircraft, in icebreakers, in research stations built upon the frozen desert. But the spirit of discovery remains. Modern explorers are not searching for flags to plant, but for knowledge to share. They drill deep into the ice, to read the history of the atmosphere. They map the hidden mountains, buried beneath the ice sheets. They send robots beneath the shelves to swim in the dark waters, seeking new life in places never touched by sunlight. Every discovery is a revelation, a lake sealed beneath the ice for millions of years, bacteria surviving in darkness, thriving on minerals alone, new insights into how the ice flows, how the seas rise, how the earth breathes. And still, Antarctica resists us. It is dangerous, unpredictable, its storms fierce, its cold unrelenting. Even with technology, human beings cannot bend it to their will. And perhaps that is its greatest gift, for Antarctica reminds us that some places are not to be conquered, but to be respected, not to be claimed, but to be cherished. Nations of the world have agreed to this truth. The Antarctic Treaty, signed in 1959, declares that the continent shall belong to no one and to everyone, a place for peace, for science, for discovery. And so Antarctica remains the last great wilderness, a land of frozen secrets, of quiet revelations, a place where humanity comes not as masters, but as students, still listening, still learning. As you close your eyes, imagine the explorers of the past, their breath in the frozen air. Imagine the scientists of today, listening to the whispers of the ice. And imagine yourself, resting now, part of the same story of discovery, not through footsteps, but through wonder. Antarctica is a place of silence, yet within that silence, the future is quietly forming. The ice stretches endlessly, reflecting sunlight into space, cooling the planet, slowing the rhythm of warming. But this balance is delicate. The choices made today, in cities far away, in factories, in forests, all ripple down to the frozen south. If the ice holds, the seas rise slowly. If the ice retreats, the seas rise quickly. The difference lies in how we live, how we care, how we listen to the warnings, whispered in bubbles of ancient air. Yet even in uncertainty, there is a stillness here. Antarctica has always changed, and it will continue to change. It is patient, measured in centuries, not years. It waits, silent and vast, while we decide the pace of its story. As we picture this frozen continent, we might feel worry, but perhaps we can also feel wonder. For Antarctica reminds us that we are part of something larger, something timeless. Its future is linked with ours, its silence holding the echoes of what is yet to come. The future of Antarctica is not written in the ice alone. It is written in us. When scientists gaze across the white expanse, they do not only see glaciers, they see a mirror reflecting back the story of humanity. The choices we make about energy, about forests, about oceans are reflected here. The ice responds, slowly but surely, to the warmth of our breath, to the touch of our machines. And so Antarctica becomes a measure of our care, a test of our patience, a sign of whether we live gently upon the earth or press too heavily. Yet, in this reflection, there is hope, for just as our actions can harm, they can also heal. The treaties that protect Antarctica are proof of this. Nations once divided by conflict came together to declare the continent a place of peace. If such unity is possible, in the coldest land on Earth. It is possible everywhere. The silent future of Antarctica is not fixed. It bends with our choices, with our care, with our willingness to see beyond ourselves. As you drift into rest, let this be a comfort, that even in a vast frozen land, so far away, human kindness, human unity can leave gentle marks, marks that help the ice endure, marks that echo softly into tomorrow. Imagine standing at the edge of the ice, looking out across the endless white. The wind moves gently, the sky glows faintly, and all around you there is silence. This is the silence of the future. It does not shout. It does not hurry. It waits, like the continent itself, for us to listen. The ice will continue to whisper, to release its ancient air, to drift into the sea. It will shape the world's coastlines, slowly redrawing them like a patient artist. And one day, perhaps long after we are gone, the balance will shift again. New ice will form. New cycles will begin. The earth will continue, always breathing, always changing. But tonight, in this moment, you do not need to solve the mysteries of tomorrow. You need only to rest, to let the silence of Antarctica become your own, to breathe slowly as the planet breathes. Close your eyes and imagine the frozen continent glittering under the stars. Imagine its calm, its patience, its quiet endurance. Let it cradle your thoughts. Let it cool your worries. Let it remind you that time moves gently and that you too can surrender to stillness. And so, as we end this journey through the frozen secrets of Antarctica, I leave you with peace. May the silence of the ice wrap around you like a blanket. May the whispers of ancient air guide your dreams. And may the patient rhythm of the earth carry you softly into sleep. Good night, dear listener, and goodbye until our next discovery.